And as soon as that comes up, you are live stream on YouTube. Susan Michel, this mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts with my good friend Myrna Scholar from Florida. It's so exciting to be here as always. I am the author of the newly published book, Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles. And this is Myrna's fabulous book, Private Lessons with Jesus, from A Course in Miracles. And her book is so amazing. We're going to read a little bit from Myrna's book today. And this is the Course in Miracles that we are here to talk about. A Course in Miracles is just such a clear navigational system that leads us to peace, love, joy, and happiness. And I can say, you know, before A Course in Miracles, I had some mood swings. Some days I felt better than others. After A Course in Miracles, I still vacillate a bit, but now when I find myself unplugged from my God socket, I can say A Course in Miracles affirmation and learn how to plug myself back in much more easily. So thank God for A Course in Miracles. How are you doing today, Myrna?
Doing very well. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. Nothing to complain about. It was a quiet day. Not too much chatter going on in my mind at all. I'm able to stabilize myself more easily. I think when the weather is nice, not that we need the weather to determine how we're going to feel, but I think it's a nice boost when you wake up and the sun is shining. For me, it's great. And then I use my swimming pool every morning and get in for a half an hour and do my thing, kick around, and it's great. It really is. I like it. That's a nice thing about being in Florida, the advantage of the warm weather. So it was good. But you too, you said you went out on your boat on the Labor Day weekend last Monday. You love that boat.
Yeah, I do love our boat. Yeah, the boat is really nice. Taking my husband and I, we take the boat out on the Connecticut River, and it's just really, really nice. And my husband is a Course in Miracles student also. So a lot of the times on the boat when we're alone, we'll talk about A Course in Miracles. Then we have the boat, the nice weather, and A Course in Miracles. And I really feel plugged into my God socket. So that's just really nice.
It's nice that you have your husband that you could share that with. How many people can say that when you think about it? You have your partner sharing the very thing that you love and have been studying, and you got him into it. I've never had that success, really. Not that the people in my life are not God, recognize God, you know, as part of themselves. I mean, I have these discussions with them, but not directly related to A Course in Miracles. So that's very nice. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, A Course in Miracles does not claim to be the only path to true peace, love, joy, and happiness. However, it is one very clear path to peace, love, joy, and happiness. And, you know, whatever course was to pull you into it is probably the correct course for you to embark on in this lifetime. You know, I was not drawn to anything like I was drawn to A Course in Miracles. However, I was listening to some Alan Cohen teachings this morning that I did mention to you in our pre-talk. And he was so articulate in clarifying what A Course in Miracles was all about. I mean, A Course in Miracles uses Christian terminology because the majority of people, especially in the United States, are Christians, and that's what they can understand. However, part of the reason that it was written was to point out the misinterpretations in religious doctrine as it is taught today. Alan Cohen was saying when Jesus Christ was alive, he was obviously very clear in his teachings. However, as his teachings got passed on throughout the years, there's fear in our thinking that has not yet been resolved. So a lot of that fear and that judgment was projected onto the clear teachings of Jesus. So as the years passed, the message became a bit convoluted. And A Course in Miracles was written, well, it was published in the 1970s. I guess Helen Schuckman was writing it in the 1960s. That's when I was born. But it was scribed to clarify the true meaning of what Jesus Christ taught. So
Yes.
I believe that's why I am so empowered by the message, and I am so grateful for the text. Alan Cohen was also saying how it is very similar to Buddhist teachings, to some of the teachings from other thought systems. I mean, I think what's so amazing about Course in Miracles, it's based on just unconditional love. There is no fear, there is no judgment, there is no sin. You know, that's a huge difference, because, you know, the religious doctrine, as we're taught today in churches, you know, calls us sinners, and we need to think of ourselves as sinners in order to remain humble in front of God, who is so great. A Course in Miracles says, no, of course God is great, God is unconditional love, but we are not sinners. We are innocent. We are a part of God who is so great. So, and I love that. I love that about A Course in Miracles, because A Course in Miracles focuses on our innocence, and A Course in Miracles focuses on our true empowerment and our true joy. And it doesn't want us to remain small. It teaches us to remain great in the glory of God. There are obviously similarities between A Course in Miracles and traditional Christianity, but there are some really miraculous differences that I am very drawn to, because when I can live what I believe to be true, and I can't always do it, but when I can live the life that I know is true, I feel extremely empowered. You know, when I'm plugged into my God socket, I feel really good. Don't you, Myrna?
Of course. What better way to feel than we're aligned with God? We're aligned with our innate goodness, which is God. And how could you not feel good about that, knowing that you are an expression of God, and that once you realize that you're an expression of God, you can use that to know yourself as God created you. God created me so that I would feel only love. That's why I was created. I was created within the power of love. But the ego, we invented the ego as well, the split thought system that we nourish. We certainly value the ego, and not realizing that we get too deep into the ego's devastations, dictates, angers, whatever emotions that the ego presents that are not of peace, not of love, then we fall back into away from knowing who we truly are. So God wants us to know who we are, and the Course in Miracles was given to us as a gift to tell us that we're not apart from God, to show us the way, to show us that we are completely as we were created. We're not going to change. Nothing's going to change that. No matter what we think, no matter what the ego tells us, we know that we are who we are supposed to be within the recognition that we are one with God. You and I talked about today's lesson. Let every voice but God's be still in me. So now, and this is, one of the later lessons, lesson 254, and it's training us. It's a mind training as well, because when we fall out of God, we believe falling out of God's grace. We'll never fall out of God's grace, but we certainly think we do when we're not aware of the magnificence that God beholds in us. And if we're not aware of it, then it's certainly not a place of love. We can be in two places, love and fear. That's it. That's what the Course in Miracles tells us. And when we can narrow it down to those two categories, we know that if we're not feeling of love, then we're not at peace, and then we're somewhere else. And I try to think about that sometimes. Am I in love or am I in fear right now? I'll ask myself that question. And the stillness that God tells us to embody and to be in that place as often as we can. And the more often that we're in that state, the easier it is to get there when we're out of it. And we're human. We're going to get out of it. We're going to have, you and I talk about triggers. We get triggered at times, but to know it for what it is and to sort of laugh at it. And sometimes now I can laugh at it. I'll say, gee, that was such a stupid thought I just had, and it upset me. How stupid is that? It makes no sense. I can now kind of pick it apart, dissect it, and realize that it was a thought that was not going to help me in any way. It certainly doesn't serve me. So, it becomes, for me, it's become a lot easier to shift my brain state. They call it transmission of consciousness too. That's what it is, to a better state of consciousness. And I just want to mention one other thing. You mentioned what Alan Cohen said about Jesus. I listened to Gina Lake, who also, what she does is she channels Jesus. And what she was channeling, he was saying through her that even his disciples didn't fully understand what he was trying, his message. He came with a message. And in those days, it was a primitive society. And so people were not as, they were not as advanced as we are today. Today, there's a lot of understanding about this, and there's so much available to us, not just the Course in Miracles. As you said, the Course in Miracles is not the only path. There are other paths. But this, to me, the Course in Miracles is the fastest way there, because it tells you, this is the truth. And it sounds true. So,
the clear paths are based on unconditional love. some of the paths that are not as clear have man's judgment projected onto them. The clear paths, it doesn't have to be a Course in Miracles per se, but any clear path is going to be based on unconditional love, innocence, because love is who God is. So when fear enters the picture, the message gets convoluted. So I have another friend of mine. She's not a Course in Miracles. She tried a Course in Miracles, but it didn't work for her. But I do find that whenever we talk about God, we come from that same mentality, because God is peace, love, joy, and happiness. There is no judgment in there. Susan judges. I can judge. I know when I'm getting judgmental. I mean, Susan with a small s, judges all the time, but I am aware that when I'm judging, that's not of God, that's coming from my ego. So I do my best to release my judgment. And again, it's not easy. It's not easy because it's not what the world is based on. But when I can release my judgment, and ultimately all judgment is about myself. So when I'm judging someone else, I'm judging myself. When I'm accepting someone else, I'm accepting myself. I'm aware of the two different mindsets that I'm available to tap into. However, it's just it's not so easy to stay aligned with Christ consciousness. It's today actually I'm I'm having a bit of a difficult time keeping myself plugged into my God socket. Yesterday and the day before, I was very aligned with Christ consciousness. It was the days just flowed, and for some reason today I'm experiencing some internal triggers that I need to release. I like what you said. You said, Myrna, that we have two choices each and every day. We can love or fear. I mean, unconditional love is when we're expressing Christ consciousness. We're expressing God. We're extending God's love, and it feels good. Fear is anything else. A Course in Miracles says the umbrella of fear covers everything that is not love. Anger, sadness, disappointment, envy, judgment, anything that's not love is under the umbrella of fear. So when I'm in a fearful mindset, I can't connect with God. When I'm connected with God, I connect with my fear. I can't remember the fearful state. Like the two places that I can go to don't know each other. God doesn't know the ego because the ego is not real. The ego doesn't know God because God is real. I mean, they're two diametrically opposed mindsets. And as I talk about it seems like I would have to be a fool to side with the ego. And the ego is so nonsensical. The ego doesn't make any, sense. It doesn't bring any joy into my life. But somehow when I just forget who and what I am, I just kind of divert to that place in my mind. I guess that is why we are all here on this earthly plane, in this earthly classroom, is to remember who we are and to make our way to the other side of that fear-based mindset. And yeah, we're getting triggers all the time in the world. The world is filled with triggers. It's if I think back to my last, I guess, larger trigger, it happened at the gym, like many of my triggers do happen. And it was very interesting how it happened, because I was basically attacked, well, not physically attacked, but I was verbally attacked by another gym member because I went into the gym. I was a little tired, but I wanted to push myself to work out. So I was basically alternating between the Smith machine and the leg press, which is two pieces of equipment. Technically, you're not supposed to use two pieces of separate equipment at the same time. You're supposed to choose one or the other. But the gym wasn't so busy, so I decided, to go back and forth. And then as I was in the gym for a little time, the gym got busier, but I was going between two pieces of equipment. And a gym member looked at me, and I was wrong for using two pieces of equipment because that's not being respectful towards the other members. However, if someone wanted to let me know that I was wrong in a nice way, I would be more than happy to listen. But what this man did is he literally just started screaming at me out of the blue. How can you use two different sets of equipment? That is just not what you're supposed to do. And I don't even remember his words, but all I remember, he was very demeaning. He was very condescending. He verbally attacked me. And it's interesting because I just kind of stared at him. I think I was triggered. I never attacked him back. I just was shocked by his extreme outburst. He's probably, kind of venting pent up anger onto me. I never attacked him. I didn't send him love either. I just kind of didn't do anything. And then when he left, I thought about going to the management of the gym to say something, but I never did. I just, just kind of went back to my workout routine. I mean, when stuff like this happens to us in life, if we can literally, see the verbal attack for what it is, everything is either love or a call for love. So to really look at this man's outburst from a Course in Miracles perspective, what he's doing is he's calling out for love. So the clearest way to respond, I teach, don't react from a place of fear, respond from a place of compassion and love. The clearest way I could respond to something like this would be to extend love to him. And, I did not attack him back. Thinking back, I was just kind of shocked. I don't know if I was plugged into my God socket enough to extend love to him. But as a Course in Miracles student, nobody can hurt us. Nobody has the power to hurt us. The only way we get hurt is to not extend God's love. The only person that can hurt us is us. Right, Myrna?
Yeah, I like that. And that was the perfect lesson right before you, that I think we get lessons every day. And there you had the opportunity to now see it for what it was. I want to read something by Wayne Dyer. I use this a lot. Okay, that's why I recorded it. Love is my gift to the world. I fill myself with love and I send that love out into the world. How others treat me is their path. How I react is mine. That's by Wayne Dyer. So I think about that, how I react is my path. It's not about the other person. He's perhaps, he's not on the same wavelength as you are, obviously. I mean, I'm sure if he had said it nicely, listen, would you mind? Of course, there are various ways of saying things, and we trigger people in our reactions. The way he reacted to what you were doing. Yeah, he could have, and then you would have been fine. And you would have, everything, it would have been a great day because it would have been an encounter that was really positive. You met somebody who pointed something out to you in a nice way. So, of course, nobody wants to be attacked. But then it's when we are attacked or feel attacked, it's a matter of recognizing that it's my reaction. It's the way it's me. It's all about me. It's never about the other guy or the other person. A few days ago, I had a car accident, actually. I didn't even tell you about
I didn't know
Oh my
that.
God.
No.
I was driving along. I was on the main street, and there was a person, a woman pulling out of a gas station, literally pulling out, and I swerved to avoid hitting her. And I got to tell you, her car, I mean, my car, the fender of my car must have caught hers because the damages that she had, the whole front of the car looked like it was smashed in. And I got out and looked at my car, and my car just had a few scratches on it. I'm thinking, how is that possible? How did my car have sustained those scratches, only scratches, when she was really, I mean, she couldn't, her car wasn't even drivable. But I got to tell you, she got out. She wasn't upset. But I wasn't upset. We looked at each other. We called we called the police who wrote up a report. And it was deemed in the report that it wasn't my fault because I was on the main street. She was pulling out. But still, I really felt so much compassion for her. I wasn't angry. People do things. We do things we don't mean to. Yes, she pulled out. It could happen to any of us. And literally, we had a very nice exchange. I asked you about Ho'oponopono, if you had heard of that. And what I use it now as a mantra almost. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. And I really wanted to say that to her. And, we talked about sending love. And I want to ask you about that. You send love a lot. How do you feel when you're sending love? I mean, do you see the person's face and say, I send you love? Do you feel it in your heart? What if you don't feel it in your heart? So I really wanted to figure out, how do you send a person love? I'd like you to talk about that, because for me, okay, I want to send this person love who I really want to strangle, but I'm going to send her love, or him, or whatever. And does it really work if we're not feeling it? But I find that in using that mantra, that Ho'oponopono mantra, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I recite that when I think of the other person. So I think that might be another good way. What do you think?
I don't think there's one particular way to send love, because I've done it in different ways myself. Sometimes when I'm angry at someone, in my morning meditation, I see this person in my mind as a body, and I give them a hug. I just force myself to give them a hug. That's one way I send love. Sometimes when I'm running and I don't feel like saying hello to someone I'm running by, just because I'm tired, in my mind, I'll just send them love, because words don't really matter. People pick up your energy. I think sometimes our hearts are tight, but when we force ourselves to send love to someone else, then we start remembering who we are. I'm thinking of the expression, fake it till you make it. I mean, I know that love is the answer. Love is the answer to everything. And if I'm not feeling it, I basically just need to push myself to try to send them love. And when I push myself to try to someone love, that's a way of elevating my vibrational frequency. Something else I remember from this little segment I listened to from Alan Cohen's book this morning, he spoke about how love is the answer to heal all wounds of any kind. And yes, I mean, when I'm yelled at by someone at the gym, it triggers me. When these little things happen, I feel like I am triggered. I mean, who is the most evil man that most people can think of? Would you know who that?
Gotta be Hitler, right?
Yes, yes. And that's why I think Alan Cohen brought this up, and he said, well, love is the answer to all evil, to all fear, to everybody, no matter how far away they are from the truth, including Hitler. And then he gave this analogy as Hitler being a little boy in a very dysfunctional household with an alcoholic father and a psychopath or a mother with extreme psychological problems, and he was very abused. And if you were to see him, encounter him, meet with him as a little boy, can you imagine yourself loving him because of all the pain he's going through? And if you can imagine yourself loving this dysfunctional little child, maybe somehow, because no matter how caught up we get in the error, it's not going to solve the problem. I mean, you even think about what happened to Jesus. What happened to Jesus? Jesus was severely tortured, you know? I mean, I just remember reading about it and hearing about it as a child. I watched that movie, The Passion of the Christ, directed by Mel Gibson, which was horrific. Everything that he endured while I mean, I don't know exactly what happened. I do believe he was brutalized, and he didn't see it that way. He forgave the people who crucified him. So to be able to forgive someone, no matter how horrible their deeds appear to be, is the way to release the fear and to connect to the love, you know? So Alan Cohen told this story about the abused child, Adolf Hitler, about how, you know, it is possible to extend Hitler love despite all the terrible things that he did. And then he talked about how at the end of this seminar, a lady came up to the person giving a seminar, and she said that Hitler story really helped her a lot. And then the robe of her sweater kind of came up on her arm, and he saw a number that showed that she was in one of those concentration camps in Germany. So, I mean, I can't imagine that happening to me. I've seen a few movies about it, but I do know that love heals all. I remember seeing a movie about that Holocaust and the German camps. It was called The Champion, and Joe and I, my husband and I, we saw it on Netflix, and it was about a prison camp in Germany and about a Jewish boxer who really went on to make a difference in the camps, you know, and he was able to help a lot of the people that were kept in these prison camps as you know, prisoners. He was just able to just help them, give them food, give them mental strength. You know, he actually was a boxer in the prison camps, and he boxed some of the German soldiers, and he was just so good that you know, a lot of the German soldiers enjoyed watching him boxing. but again, he had a horrific experience, and he lost loved ones, and he was brutalized, and he was tortured. But at the end of his time in the prison camp, he hung on to the power of love. And the movie was how love can resolve all things. And when I think about some of the horrible things that happened to some people, I do think it's possible, in the midst of my little crisis my little triggers that I experience in this world, it is possible to just focus on the love and I guess align myself with Christ consciousness more and more often. I mean, that is possible. And I think, that's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do, is to overlook the mistakes that are made in today's world, overlook them, like so much so as to just realize that they never really happened. I mean, if it was negative, it was an illusion. I mean, we have the power to just see beyond the errors. We have the power to see beyond the fear. Why do we have that power? Because God only sees unconditional love. I'm a part of God. So if God can see through our errors, I have that ability also.
Yeah, yeah, you described that very well. You couldn't have zeroed in on it better. Recognizing that we can always make a difference, no matter how horrific the conditions are, we can make a difference. You talk about, it made me think of the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And actually what he was saying basically is that he's the one who wrote the book about these brutal murders, and the murderers were caught, and he interviewed one of them in prison, and he befriended him really because he wanted to write the book. He wanted to get the full story. And even though one of the criminals who did a horrific thing, murdering a whole family or being an accomplice to that, yet he said that we had similar childhoods. Both of them had very dysfunctional families, very similar. Both of them had mothers who were prostitutes, fathers, I believe, who were abusive. I mean, their upbringings were similar. And Truman Capote said, I went in through the front door and he went in through the back door. So our experiences, yes, we talk about Hitler because he was maybe an unloved child, who knows? But there are plenty of children who are unloved that grow up to be very loving, wonderful people. So it's really a choice. It's where you decide to go. I believe that Jesus knew that he was going to the cross. He could have run away. He could have escaped, but he didn't want to do that because he believed that he needed to teach the lesson of there is no death, perhaps. That was what he was wanted to instill. He wanted to instill that love, even in the most horrific conditions, we can still love. So, people are all different, but I believe in the end, truth emerges, and we move on, and the universe is a benevolent place. The universe is benevolent, and that because the consciousness of people make it what it is. So if we can move up to higher states of consciousness, joining with those souls who have already been there, gotten there, or coming with us, you can make the world a better place. So even though we see all these things happening, and horrible things have happened to people, but many of them have made a difference and have excelled that way, excelled in their teachings through a greater level of consciousness, a higher level of understanding, so to speak. So
I say in a lot of my seminars, the talks that I give in my book, we don't grow despite life's challenges. We grow because of life's challenges. So by overcoming the obstacles that appear in our life, we build strength, we build character, we build resilience. I mean, I do believe that. Today's lesson, as you pointed out, is just such a fabulous lesson. It's lesson 254. Let every voice but God's be still in me. So it's just a matter of listening to God's voice as often as possible. And when that negative egoic chit chat comes into our minds, I mean, we don't want to fight against it, because if we fight against it, we give it power, we feed it. What we need to do is just focus on the light. And by focusing on the light, the darkness, the negativity, the egoic chit chat will just dissipate. Because again, God doesn't know the ego and the ego does not know God. We're only capable of being plugged into the God socket or giving allegiance to the ego, one or the other. I actually love lesson 254 in your book, in Private Lessons with Jesus, that I have right here in front of me. And just to read a little bit of your lesson, I think it's brilliant. So it starts out, let every voice but God's be still in me. And then Jesus channeled through you, Myrna, the chatter of the world intrudes upon your peace day and night. I mean, it's so true. It's like when I'm meditating in the morning and I feel myself aligned with Christ, when I feel myself surrounded by light, when I feel just empowered and embodying the truth. I mean, that's my place of peace, love, joy, and happiness. And then I go into the world and I listen to the news, or I see someone that's at a lower vibratory level for whatever the reason. I mean, that's what it says right here. The chatter of the world intrudes upon your peace day and night. It drowns out the quiet which you cannot feel when you are caught in a world of constant chaos. This can never take precedence over God's gentle voice, because God speaks quietly, he speaks clearly, he speaks confidently. And when we're caught up in that egoic chit chat, we can't hear him. He's always talking to us, but when we're caught up in the ego, we can't hear what he's saying. How can, which is what Jesus writes right here through you. How can peace be felt when you are out of touch with the one who offers it to you? With God, you are not fragmented into a million little pieces of confusion, which brings no harmony to your senses. When you go within, truth speaks to you, and you are focused on the depth of peace and stillness, which is yours to behold for as long as you wish. In silence, your mind tunes out all outside interference, and you can feel the peace within touch your soul. How magnificent you are when you reach for God's hand in quiet surrender. God's holy presence enters into a still mind. He gives you these moments to be shared with him in complete serenity and calmness. His voice tells you that there is nothing but your own thoughts that make you fearful, for in reality, there is nothing to fear. The truth stands right before you, As you feel the healing effects of God's love, cleanse your mind and fill it with love. Feel his life draw you into perfection. This is where all chatter stops and the joy of the moment is more radiant than a life which promises the world but offers nothing. Love Jesus. That is so brilliant, Myrna. I could feel God's peace, love, joy, and happiness enter into me as I was reading that. So do you remember when you were channeling that?
Yeah, I do remember that. It started out as I was going to start the lessons again. I had done them several times, and I was going to start the lessons again. And I'm thinking, is it boring? I've done them before, and I was going to do them, of course. You can never get bored. I mean, you can never stop learning from the lessons. But I asked Jesus, I thought of doing it a different way. I said, what if I just put the title of the lesson into the computer, and I would close my eyes and just let my fingers roll along the keyboard, and started with lesson number 1. And I found that I was getting messages. I was getting downloads, just what I asked for. You ask Jesus, and that's what you get. And through a series of thoughts and feelings and words, I would just get into that consciousness, and I was able to kind of just move along on the keyboard. And that's when I realized I wanted to publish this, because I realized it wasn't meant for just me. I mean, I thought it would be when I first started it, but then I realized that I really wanted to share it. This particular lesson, I like right here where it says God's holy presence enters into a still mind. And that's when God enters in, when the mind is still. And perhaps when I was writing this book, my mind was still enough to accept the thoughts and the words that were coming in. You have to really want to be in that place of stillness. It's not going to just come to you just because you know that it's there. It's there, but you have to now invite it in to experience it. So that year that I was doing this, I really experienced a lot of stillness, because I allowed God to approach me from a different angle, or Jesus, same thing really. And so that's how this book was created, really. But it really also showed my love for A Course in Miracles, because I love the titles of every lesson. I mean, I can take any title and then really get into it, or use it as an affirmation when I'm not feeling peace. Grabbing for any one of these titles works for me, especially in the middle of the night, believe it or not. I wake up, or I used to, it was more rampant years ago. It happens still, where I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm feeling very fearful. Maybe I had a fearful dream, I don't know. But when I have that fear inside of me, and I don't even know why it's there, I'll take one of the lessons from A Course in Miracles, the title of the lesson, and I'll recite it to myself. And, it's amazing when you do that and you feel the fear just lift away. It just does, as if God is there, extending his hand, taking that fear away. And it works 100% of the time. I've said this many times, really. And that's what I do. I don't even question why I'm in fear. I don't even let it permeate my mind, and the fear, or maybe I'm thinking of something that I have to do tomorrow that's uncomfortable for me. Whatever it may be, I will let it go in favor of. That's an Amber Alert. I just got an Amber Alert.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Talking about fear.
right.
You just got an Amber Alert.
Yeah. Kidnapped children. Oh my God. Anyway, it's the alert. So, yeah.
I mean, it's just so important to discipline our mind. A Course in Miracles says we are much too tolerant of mind wandering. I actually got up in the middle of the night last night talking about saying affirmations in the middle of the night. And I think I did have a bad dream. I remember I was dreaming about money. I didn't have enough money in my dream. I guess that's what's going through my mind now. And I focused on my innocence, because no matter what it is that we're fearful of, it's keeping us from God. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. I think that's an affirmation
Use that one a
I say
lot.
quite often. Yeah. And also just focusing on my innocence, focusing on the love, focusing on the fact that there is nothing to fear, because it's never about the thing that we're afraid of. You know, I guess I'm going through a little bit of a money trigger right now, but it doesn't matter what we're focusing on. You know, whenever we are afraid of anything, you know, we are keeping ourselves away from who we truly are. We're keeping ourselves away from our true essence. And what God wants us to do is he wants us to focus on the peace, love, joy, and happiness as often as possible, all the time. He wants to focus because when we can like really trust God, to rely upon spirit totally, when we can really trust God, when we can really know that everything is just perfect right here, right now, and that there is nothing to fear, that's what enables God to get through to us. That's what enables God to extend his love through us. And that's when we can feel the most empowered. You know, it's just a matter, like you said here in this lesson, you know, to be still. That's when in silence, your mind tunes out all outside interference, and you can feel the peace within touch your soul. I'm going to say that one more time. In silence, your mind tunes out all outside interference, and you can feel the peace within touch your soul. So when we can really silence our mind, you know, when we can really be still and know that we are God, when we can really just trust that God is always there for us, God has our back. You know, it's like we don't have to go into the past, you know, and think about, you know, grievances that we have in the past. We don't need to worry about the future. We don't need to project fearful thoughts onto the future. All we need to know is everything is just perfect right here, right now, and there is nothing to fear. And that place that is accessible to us at all times is something that we need to discipline ourselves to tap into, to connect to. So, and I think by, you know, I don't know, I mean, for me, it's about listening to A Course in Miracles on Audible, you know, on YouTube. It's about, you know, going into the workbook lessons and saying, I mean, what A Course in Miracles is telling us to do in the workbook: let every voice but God's be still in me. So when I'm into any kind of negative egoic chit chat, to remember my lesson of the day: let every voice but God's be still in me, and just release whatever it is in my mind that is fearful. So, because I think there is a lot of discipline involved in A Course in Miracles, but ultimately, when we use that discipline to keep ourselves tapped into God, there's so much of a reward. The rewards that we get is just indescribable, because we feel peaceful, we feel empowered, and it's just so beautiful. And I think sometimes when I start to feel myself connect to Christ consciousness, I guess, you know, I feel really good. I feel like so much joy. I feel so much peace. I feel so much empowerment. And then I'm not sure why sometimes I get scared. I don't know why I do that, but I guess it's just constant discipline, it's constant remembering who I am. It's constant, like, placing my mind on joyful thoughts. Because what I think at some point we're all going to get to a place of enlightenment. The when we get there, the people that get there sooner, are here to help others get there. I mean, ultimately, we're all going back to heaven. It's available to everyone. It's everyone's destiny to connect to this place of enlightenment and feel at peace all the time.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Susan. Yeah. I'm writing another book. This one is it's a challenge for me because it's a love story. It's strictly fictional. And what I'm finding is that, we get scared sometimes. I'm getting into a certain emotional, because I'm getting into the story, my own story. I'm getting into the story that I'm inventing. And I'm feeling the fear. I'm feeling the sadness of a tragedy that's happening in my story, feeling it. And I realize that's how actors feel when they get into a role. It's all a play. That everything is a play, whether it's things that we think are happening, a book that we're writing. The emotional part of us is not real anyway. The emotional, fear part of us, the part that is plugged into that. And I realized that, I felt just as bad over a fictional story that I'm writing as I do over some of the things that I think are real, that I think happened in my life. But it's not, if you look at it in terms of it's not real, none of it is real anyway. Two people can view an accident, you get two different viewpoints completely. People don't always see the same thing. The body's eyes can't be relied on to tell you the truth. Only the soul can tell you the truth. Only the downloads that you get when you're still. And then you begin to get more and more understanding of what truth is, because then you know the truth because you feel it. You feel what the truth is. And if God wants me to be peaceful, then it's my job to strive for that.
Exactly. And God always wants us to be peaceful. I mean, God is just extending his love to us. And it says in A Course in Miracles also, God needs us as much as we need him. So when we can really still our mind and allow the energy of God to flow through us, we're so happy and we're making God so happy. It's a win-win. Sometimes it kind of blows my mind to think about that. I mean, A Course in Miracles literally says God needs us at as much as we need him. How can God need little old me? Because my ego says I'm nothing and God's everything. But I'm everything too. Everything is available to me at each and every moment. Everything is available to me whenever I can open my heart to accept his love. It's true, and intellectually I know it's true, but there's still that little me that has a hard time accepting it. So I just know that when I make certain choices, I feel better. I know when I can meditate each morning, I feel better. I know when I can focus on A Course in Miracles lesson, I feel better. I know when I can focus on love, I can feel better. I know there are certain affirmations that I can say that make me feel better. And I guess also, I mean, to know that I'm not alone. We all have the same challenges. I mean, when you talk to any other person, we all have the same challenges down on this earthly classroom, in this earthly classroom. And And A Course in Miracles tells us we are never, ever alone. So when we are going through some challenging times, I mean, there's always help available to us, you know, on the earthly plane and also in the higher realms, you know, the Christ is always available to us whenever we ask for his wisdom and his guidance and direction. He's always there. We're never alone. And that's a very calming, beautiful thought.
I love that, Susan. It is. It really is. See, we know it, but if you ever took EST, you know, I think Werner Erhard is the one who said, understanding was the movie prize.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You understand it, but if you don't do it, you know, it doesn't matter. You got to do it. And you got to, you know, and the Course in Miracles gives us the wherewithal to do it, gives us the, you know, I call it a roadmap, and leads us to truth. So I love this.
Thank you. Thank you. I love this time with you, Myrna. I love you so
Right.
much. And it
I
is
love
now
you.
4:00. So thank you so much for being here with me today. And as the introduction says, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And what that means is the only thing that's real is the love. And I greatly enjoyed my time here on Pal Talk as always. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you so much, Myrna and Susan. We'll see you tomorrow, Myrna, and
Yeah.
Susan again on Friday.